Concluding what something will mean is a product of the mind. It is not reality. Things can always change. Welcome to the Zen Stoic Path, where we share a modern take on timeless wisdom to help you develop unshakable inner peace so that you can live a liberated life. I'm your host, Victor Pierantoni, and the co-founder and head liberation coach. Be sure to follow me on social at victor.liberatedlife for daily content. Let's get into the show. Defeat is a state of mind. No one is ever defeated until defeat has been accepted as a reality. Bruce Lee. In this episode, we're going to be discussing the idea of getting ahead of ourselves. In other words, drawing conclusions and assuming meaning before things have happened. The idea behind this episode is letting go of or detaching from future outcomes. Because one thing that we end up doing is, in contrast to the last episode, we not only hold on to the past and allow it to destroy our state of mind, but we also attach to the future. When we hold on to the past, we feel regret, we feel sad, we feel depressed. When we hold on to the future, what we end up doing is we end up creating anxiety. We end up creating a sense of worry. And one thing to really remember here is that nothing is set in stone. There is no inherent meaning and everything changes. It's very much like Suzuki Roshi. One of his lectures, a student had asked him, could you please put it in a nutshell? Could you reduce Buddhism to one phrase? And everyone laughed. Suzuki laughed. And then he replied, everything changes. And then asked for another question. Because the idea here is, when we align with the reality of what our existence is, everything changes. The only constant is change. And whether we think about victory or defeat, we think about things going bad or things going good, if nothing has happened yet and we're attaching to a future, whether for positive or negative, we are taking ourselves out of the realm of understanding and leading with a sense of curiosity, and we are moving into life with preconceived assumptions and beliefs. And oftentimes what this is going to do is it's going to limit us from being able to have a full perspective of life and reality in the world around us. And so this episode is related to the Zen Stoic intention and delusion set of understanding versus control. And understanding versus control is related to one's communication with self and others. Understanding is focused on the pursuit of learning through curiosity, whereas control is focused on confirming preconceived assumptions and fulfilling arbitrary expectations. So this idea of understanding is how we actually detach from the future. Because if we know what the future is, or we assume what it's going to be, or we have concluded a belief system, or we've concluded that we've either been defeated or there has been a victory, then we are not in understanding, we are in control. We are unable to actually lead with curiosity if we assume that we already know the answer of what life will be. And so there is a story that really helps to bring this concept to light. And it is a story that, once again, just the last one, is one of the stories that I tell most often when it comes to coaching, because it allows us to really let go of that sense of future, to really let go of what things are going to mean. And in any moment, if we decide and conclude what the meaning of life is, whether it's for a positive or negative reason, we get ourselves stuck. We create rigidity because we start to try to control life. We try to put it in a box, and that is not the nature of life. We're not here to control life. We are here to learn and understand and gain a sense of wisdom. And so the story goes like this. There's an old farmer who had worked his crop for many years. One day, his horse ran away. Upon hearing the news, his neighbors came to visit. Such bad luck, they said sympathetically. Maybe, the farmer said. The next morning, the horse returned, bringing with it 3 other wild horses. How wonderful, the neighbors exclaimed. Maybe, replied the farmer. The following day, his son tried to ride one of the untamed horses, and was thrown off and broke his leg. The neighbors came again to offer their sympathy for this misfortune. Maybe, answered the farmer. The following day, military officials came to the village to draft young men into the army, seeing that the son's leg was broken. They passed him by. The neighbors congratulated the farmer on how well things had turned out because his son didn't have to go fight in this gruesome war. And once again, the farmer said maybe. Now, the idea behind this story is that nothing ever is truly concluded. Life goes on. Life continues to move. And if we try to conclude something in the moment, what we're trying to do is fill a void of understanding. And typically, we attempt to control that which we cannot understand. Understanding is about leading with curiosity, about understanding what we like to call the dichotomy of knowing. And the dichotomy of knowing is something I explained a few episodes back, where there are things in life that we know and things that we don't know. Most of everything falls under the category of what we do not actually know. It is this concept that we did a rendition of, a Zen Stoic rendition of from Buddhism, called integral view, or as it is called in Buddhism, right view, which is to have a total or complete view. In order to have an integral view, as we like to call it, it begins with understanding that we do not know, and that what we're looking at from any vantage point is only partially the truth. So with our experiences in life, the way that we can think about it is like this. If we look up in the sky at night and we see the Big Dipper looks as it is from Earth, from the vantage point that we have. But if we are at another location in space, that constellation might look completely different. It might not look like the Big Dipper. So the whole point is that every angle, every vantage point has a different truth to it. And to have a total or complete view is to first understand that we don't truly know anything. A lot of what we're doing when it comes to our beliefs is we are assuming things. And science does this every day. Science is consistently disproving old truths and innovating upon what was once true. There was a point in time where we believed that the universe or the sun revolved around, or everything in the universe revolved around the earth. But things are consistently evolving and changing. And when we feel like we know, we feel like we believe in a fact, then what we end up doing is actually getting ourselves stuck. Things can always change for better or for worse. One thing to take away from this is to create a sense of equanimity in your life, whether you're experiencing something negative or something positive. It doesn't mean that you can't get excited or you can't get sad. It's important to feel the feelings that you have, feel the emotions that you have, but not to necessarily create a narrative or a reality that you attach to based on what is happening. Things can always change at a moment's notice. Things that we never expect. Life can completely turn around for the better tomorrow. The idea is not to get stuck in a belief cycle. When we believe that things are going to be a certain way, we are intending the delusion of control. We are trying to control our lives because we're trying to confirm the void of understanding that we have. We attempt to control that which we cannot understand because it makes us feel safe, or at least we think it's going to make us feel safe. But the reality is we don't truly know. And so an assumption is a very poor substitute for a sense of certainty and security. We assume because we don't know. We assume because we feel anxious, we feel scared when there is a void of understanding. The only way towards truly knowing is first acknowledging that you don't truly know with a full sense of embrace. To not know is an opportunity to learn. It's an opportunity to be curious and to wonder and to experience childlike awe in the world. As human beings, we are designed to learn. We are designed to adapt and learn very quickly. And so life is not about controlling our reality. Life is about learning. And when we lead with a sense of curiosity, when we lead with the mindset of maybe, we are able to not fully build a sense of conviction or certainty within something that we do not know, but instead open ourselves up to the opportunity for the wisdom to enter our lives, for us to see a new perspective. So to practice this dichotomy of knowing is to acknowledge that yes, I know that I am here in this life. I know that I am here right now in this very moment. What I don't know is what's going to happen tomorrow. What I don't know is what I'm truly capable of. And I can remain curious and continue in the pursuit of attempting to understand what my true capabilities or potential is, attempting to understand what life has to unfold. Remaining and leading with this sense of curiosity means to lead with questions. When we lead with questions instead of defining things in a box, we allow ourselves to open up and create flexibility in our perception. When we lead with questions, we give ourselves the opportunity to truly learn. Every time you say to yourself, I don't know, is an opportunity for curiosity, wonder, and learning. Allow yourself to use this mindset of maybe in order to practice understanding. Some of the key takeaways from this episode are: the present moment is the convergence point where everything can change. The past is just a memory and the future is just speculation. So what this means is that right now, anything can change right now in this present moment. Just because something is happening in this present moment does not mean that it's permanent. So the convergence point is the idea that you can always change directions at any point in time. I love the example that Alan Watts gives, where he says that we cannot define where we're going based on our past. It's very much like a ship going through the sea. The ship leaves behind a wake, and the wake shows us, or the wake symbolizes the past. It shows us where the ship has been, but it has no bearing on where the ship is going. And the ship can always change directions. And so when we allow ourselves to remain in the present moment, we can practice that sense of understanding. We can bring ourselves to the realization that anything can change in this moment, that we can even change in this moment what we believe or the direction that we're going to take in terms of our actions. Next takeaway is that concluding what something will mean is a product of the mind. It is not reality. Things can always change. We think that bringing closure to reality makes us feel safe through knowing what will be, but the reality is that it blinds us. And the way towards truly knowing is first acknowledging that you don't know with full embrace. This particular lesson of not getting ahead of oneself and to detaching from the future outcome has served me particularly well in my life, because by practicing a sense of understanding and not control, of assuming that something was going to go my way or not, has really been very rewarding, especially in the area of relationships. So over the last couple months, I got into a relationship with a woman that I absolutely adore. And what was really interesting is that one of the challenges in the beginning was this idea of getting ahead of myself. Like, I really liked her pretty early on, and it was definitely not my intention to do so, but it felt like it was something outside of my control, the degree to which I felt for her. And in telling this story, I really do hope that this podcast ages well, because we haven't been together for too long. But this lesson of practicing understanding versus control, of practicing that maybe mindset versus the conclusion or the assumption that things were going to go a certain way, really did serve me in this relationship, and served her as well. What was interesting is that in the beginning, when we started dating, I remember I definitely liked her a lot more than she liked me, at least initially. It's now pretty mutual, which is great. But in the beginning, I certainly was getting ahead of myself. I wanted to be in a relationship with her. And I noticed that as I was doing that, I was being very attached to an outcome. But I wasn't being attached to necessarily who she was as a human being. I was getting attached to an idea that I had of her, a projection in my own mind of who I believed she was. And I realized I'm not liking this person. I'm liking my idea of this person. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting attached to the outcome of us being together. And that is a bad place to be when it comes to creating a relationship, because what I was getting attached to was an abstraction of reality, not reality itself. I wasn't living reality. I wasn't present in the moment. So I decided that obviously I needed to stop that type of thinking and instead simply be very present with her in the moment. And I remember we had this conversation a couple dates in where she was actually planning on not necessarily continuing our interaction, thinking to herself that maybe there's other people out there who are more compatible for one another. And I remember when she told me this, it was the very thing that I dreaded and feared. And in that moment when she had said it, the response that I gave completely changed everything in our dynamic. And it was really beautiful, because I remember she basically said, I don't know if this is the right thing for either of us. And I simply said to her, I'm like, it's completely okay for you to feel the way that you feel. I still like you and I would like to be with you, but I'm not in a rush to make this into anything. We can be where we're at. We can enjoy where we're at without an expectation of where this needs to go. And it was in that moment that I detached from the outcome and became present to the process of us truly connecting. And it transformed the dynamic of the relationship, allowed both of us to feel more free, more comfortable in the relationship. And this all came down to a practice of understanding versus control. It wasn't me trying to coerce her into feeling a certain way or into being in a relationship. I wasn't trying to lock her down, but instead, what happened was we just both became very present in the interaction in the relationship. And because of that, we were both free to be ourselves. And we were both able to operate from a place of curiosity and understanding of getting to know the other person, not just assuming how things would be, not just concluding and attaching to an outcome that was outside of the present moment. Instead, we stayed present with one another and in our connection. And this is one example of how this maybe mindset applies in everyday life. So whenever something good or something bad happens, or something that you expect or didn't expect, or that you were afraid of, or that you're dreading, just remember, maybe. Practice understanding. There's no need to conclude things. You don't have to accept things or accept a conclusion. That is all a state of mind. Allow yourself to be curious and present to the process. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It is my mission to help as many people as possible to live a liberated life with unshakable inner peace through the content on this podcast. Subscribe to this channel with notifications on to be notified daily whenever we share a new episode.